Hello students, good morning, and I'm Ms. Rukmani, your biology teacher. I'm welcoming you back to my video where we'll be continuing with the animal tissue where we left. Previously we have completed, in our previous video we have completed epithelial tissue and connective tissue, and today is the last video for this chapter where we will be completing the two tissues, the muscle tissue and the nervous tissue, okay, neural tissue. So let us start with the muscle tissue. The third animal tissue is the muscle tissue. Here, each muscle is made up of fiber. One single muscle. Each muscle is made up of fibers which are long and cylindrical fibers. Okay, fibers which are long and cylindrical. And these fibers are arranged in parallel arrays. We will see in diagram in parallel arrays. Alright. Now we understand that each muscle is made up of each fiber, and then each fiber is made up of fibers are composed of numerous fine tubules. Numerous fine fibrils, or we call tubules. Tubules also we can call it, fine fibrils, and these fibrils are known as myofibrils. Okay, they are known as myofibrils. Now let us see the diagram in short. Consider this to be as your one muscle. Okay, this is your one muscle, each muscle. So they are made up of what? Fibers, plural, many fibers. So inside this muscle, there are cylindrical fibers. So many. So these are fibers which we also call fascicles. When we will learn in human physiology, contraction and movement in human body, then we will learn in detail what these parts are known as. So here this is the black color structure which I have drawn is a muscle, and the blue color structure is the fiber with which the muscle is made up of. See, each muscle, suppose this is one muscle, like that there will be many muscles. Okay, many muscles, and each muscle is made up of many fibers. You see, these are the fibers. Now again, these fibers you can see they are long and cylindrical. They are long and cylindrical. That's why I have, since it is cylindrical, the tip portion I have drawn round. And they are composed, again, this each fiber, okay, each fiber is composed of numerous fine fibrils. Now inside each fiber, there are again thin fibrils. Okay, inside each fiber, there are thin, it is made up of thin fibrils. So what is this thin fibrils known as? Myofibrils. And how they are arranged, you see, the fibrils are also arranged parallelly, the fibers are also arranged parallelly. So in the same manner, in some muscles, the muscles are also arranged parallelly. So this is one muscle, this is another muscle arranged parallelly. Okay? So we will see that. So I hope the diagram is clear here, the muscles diagram, how muscle is made up of. Now muscle fiber which we have seen, this muscle fiber diagram which we have seen, this muscle fiber has a capacity of, contraction and relaxation. For what purpose they do contraction and relaxation? for the movements of our body parts. So our hands, legs, and even our internal organs, muscles, they move. Okay, like our heart muscles, they move. Intestinal muscles, they move. Okay, our lips, eyes, all the movement which takes place in our body, the muscle movements which takes place in our body, it is all due to that fiber which we have seen in the diagram. The fiber which we have seen, that muscle fiber has a capacity of contraction and relaxation. And when do they contract? When stimulation takes place. Stimulation means when certain stimulation is certain information which we get from the surrounding, from the environment, and on the basis of that surroundings information, we do the necessary movement. All right. So now, why my lips are moving, why my eyes are moving? My eyes are moving according to the need. So I have to see to the camera or I have to see to the board. So my eye muscles are moving accordingly. So in the same manner, my hands are moving to show you the diagrams and to show you the to write something on the board. Okay, to explain you something, my hands are moving. Okay, all these movements are done on the basis of the stimulation, on the basis of the information which get from the environment, and accordingly we do the movement. All right. So on the basis of the stimulation, our muscles, they contract, and when it contracts, the movement takes place. And when the movement is not supposed to take place, then it will come back to its original position, that is by relaxation. Okay, by the relaxation of the muscle, it will come back to its original position. All right. Now we will see the types of muscle tissue. So there are three types of muscle tissue. One is skeletal muscle tissue. The first one, skeletal muscle tissue, smooth muscle tissue, and cardiac muscle tissue. Okay, so we'll start with skeletal muscle tissue. These muscle tissues are attached with our bones, skeletal bones. Okay, so in our limbs, the muscles which are joined, they are skeletal muscles. Okay, in our cheek, the muscles which are joined, they are skeletal muscles. All right, in our limbs, legs and feet, wherever our muscles are joined with the bones, so they are known as skeletal muscle. In our ribs, we have muscles joined between the ribs, so those muscles are skeletal muscles. Okay, so skeletal muscles which are joined with the bones. And then for example, in our biceps, I'll come to that example. These muscles are covered by a sheet of tough connective tissue. Connective tissue encloses several bundles of muscle fiber. So we see that in our muscle, this is muscle bundle, and this is one fiber, this is one fibers. So these fibers are enclosed by connective tissue. Here the connective tissues are enclosing it. It is protecting. It is enclosing. Okay, it is surrounding, forming a sheet around these fibers. Okay, connective tissues. All right. So let me draw it once again. If this is a muscle tissue and here is a fiber, so this is one fiber, muscle fiber. So these muscle fibers are enclosed by a sheet of connective tissues. Okay, a sheet of connective tissues. What is their role? What are their names that you will learn in the upcoming chapter? Okay, for time being, you just need to know this. The basic structure you need to know. Okay, for this chapter, you just need to know the basic structure. Okay, in detail, we'll be learning in human physiology. All right. So the muscle fiber which we are talking, so this muscle fiber, the bundle of this muscle fiber is covered by a sheet of connective tissue. Okay, so we'll see an example of bicep muscles. Biceps are our skeletal muscles. Okay, so they are striated muscle fibers are arranged in parallel fashion bundled together. Okay, so as we have seen the example in the diagram, as we have seen, okay, in the diagram as we have seen, in the muscle fiber they are arranged in parallel fashion. In the muscle, the fibers are arranged in parallel fashion. The same thing it is explained here. Now, why it is called striated muscle? Because it has this skeletal muscle. They have stripes. Okay, they have stripes. Suppose if this is a fiber here, this is a muscle fiber. Yeah, you can refer to the diagram from your textbook to see the striated muscles. Okay, to see the striated muscle, you can refer to the diagram 7.7. Okay, if this is a fiber, in this fiber you will see stripes are present. Muscle fiber. This is a muscle fiber, and in muscle fiber there is stripes. So that's why skeletal muscle is also known as striated muscle fiber. They are also known as striated muscle fiber because of the stripes which are present here. So that was skeletal muscle. Now we'll come to the smooth muscle. How is smooth muscle? Let me draw the diagram here, or you can see the diagram from 7.7, figure B. Here is the nucleus. This is a muscle cell. Okay. So how is this muscle cell? It is tapering. Yeah, tapering, pointed. So fibers are from both ends of the fiber. It tapers. Tapers means pointed. Okay, so you can see here it is pointed, here it is pointed. In both the fiber, if this is a fiber, and in this fiber, the end of the both ends are tapering. Okay, and there is no striation, no stripe. So that's why they are unstriated muscle fiber. Unstriated muscle fiber. So they don't have stripe like the previous muscle we have seen, it was having stripe, but here they don't have those stripes. So they are unstriated muscle fiber. Okay. But the common thing is, in case of skeletal muscle also, we see the muscle fibers are bundled together by a sheet of connective tissue. Here also they are bundled together by sheet of connective tissue. So if you are asked a question, connective tissue, okay, connective tissue. So if you are asked a question like, what is the similarity between the skeletal muscle and smooth muscle? The similarity is, in both the case, the bundle of muscle fiber is covered by sheet of connective tissue. In both the case, the bundle of muscle fibers are covered by sheet of connective tissue. So where these smooth muscle fibers are found, where these smooth muscle tissues are found? In the walls of internal organs. Walls of internal organs. Okay, such as blood vessels. So blood vessels are made up of smooth muscles. Stomach is made up of smooth muscles. Intestine is made up of smooth muscles. Okay. Another interesting fact which I have left from the skeletal muscle is, they are voluntary muscles. They perform voluntary action. Okay, skeletal muscle, they perform voluntary actions. It means what? It means the action which is done by our control. Okay, when we take control of certain action, that action is known as voluntary action. Okay, suppose if I don't want to raise my hand, I will not raise my hand. Right, now I want to put my hand on my head. So I thought it and then I have put it on my head, right? So that which I can think and do the movement. I thought about it, that movement, and I did it. So that is voluntary action. So skeletal muscle, they do voluntary action, whereas smooth muscle, they do involuntary actions. Involuntary actions means actions of muscles which are not in our control. Okay, for example, our intestine wall, it keeps on moving. Okay, that is not in our control. Okay, that happens automatically under the control of brain. Okay, involuntary action. So if you are thinking that okay, right now I will not make my muscle, intestine muscle to contract, no, it cannot. It will happen by itself. In the same way, the blood vessels also has muscle. So in certain cases, blood vessel will dilate and it will constrict. Constrict means in some cases the blood vessel will constrict. It will if this is blood vessel, it will become smaller in area. In some cases, near the kidney it is required, and in some cases the blood vessel will dilate, it will become bigger in area. So it is due to the smooth muscle present in the blood vessel's wall. Okay, so this constricting and dilating is a movement, right? So blood vessel also do the movement, our intestine wall also do the movement, and that movement is involuntary actions which is not in our control. It happens on its own under the control of brain wherever it is necessary. Okay, so such kind of action is known as involuntary action. Alright, so that was smooth muscle tissue. Coming to cardiac muscle tissue. Cardiac muscle tissues are contractile tissue. Contractile tissue, and they are present only in heart. Nowhere else you will find cardiac muscle. Now what do you mean by contractile tissue? Contractile tissue means which can stimulate contraction on its own. Cause contraction. Okay? On its own. Irrespective of the control of the other part, irrespective of the control, it can generate its impulse by itself. Stimulus or impulse, it can generate by itself. Okay, so that's why they are called contractile tissue. Where the rest movement of our body is it depends upon the stimulus with respect to the environment, or the impulse with respect to the environment. It depends upon the environment. On the basis of the environment, we do the movement. Whereas in case of heart, they can generate the stimulus by themselves. Okay. And the cell junction fuse the plasma membrane. Cell junction fuse the plasma membrane of cardiac muscle cell and make them stick together. Now we can refer to the diagram 7.7, figure C. Here, if this is a cardiac muscle cell, okay, one cardiac muscle cell, so it will fuse with the other cardiac muscle cell like this. It fuse, the plasma membrane fuse. This is the cell junction, and since the cell junction fuse the plasma membrane. Okay, here we know that there is a junction, right? If you remember from the junction which we have learned in the epithelial tissue, a junction between the cells we have, and that junction fuses the plasma membrane between the two cells, and that helps them to stick together. So this is one cell of the cardiac muscle cell, and this is so they stick together and they form a branch. Okay, and then there is another point. There's a gap junction called gap junction, which is also known as communication junction. junction, okay, which is also known as communication junction. So this gap junction at some fusion point allows the cell to contract. Okay, so here this gap junction means a channel which is present between the two cells, which allows the material to move in between the cells. Okay, so that gap junction, which also known as communication junction, at some fusion point. Here is the fusion point. We know that here is the fusion point. Both the cell has fused together and allow the cell to contract. So in this way, they allow this gap junction at the fusion point, allows it to contract. Okay, at this fusion point only the contraction takes place. Okay, so cardiac muscles also, they do this action is involuntary action. Okay, involuntary action. We have no action. We have no control on the contraction and relaxation of our heart's muscle, right? Our heart keeps on contracting and relaxing is because of the contractile tissue because they perform involuntary action. Okay. Next we will see the last tissue, the neural tissue, which we also call nervous tissue. We can also call nervous tissue. So the purpose of nervous tissue is for responsiveness. How do we respond to the environment? Responsiveness. So the unit, the structural unit of neural tissue is known as neuron. You have studied neuron earlier. So neuron is a structural unit. Neuron is a longest cell, if you remember, nerve cell, right? So neuron is a nerve cell. So nerve cell is a structural unit of neural tissue, and it is also a functional unit. Okay, and this neuron is also known as excitable cell because as it receives the stimulus, as it receives the information from the environment, they generate electric impulse. They generate electric impulse, and that electric impulse travels through the nerve cells through action potential. Okay, so in detail we will be learning about action potential and all this in human physiology chapter. But here for the basic, what does excitable cell means? Excitable cell means where the neuron can generate electric impulse, okay, through the stimulus received from the environment. When we receive any stimulus, suppose you this is a hot pan, and if you have touched this hot pan, you don't touch it, right? You remove your hand from it. So how do you know that this is a hot pan? So because here we have neurons, and that neurons receives the information from the environment that this is a hot, okay, this is a hot, and that is why you leave it. Okay, because neurons sends the information immediately to the brain. Okay, so because neurons on the basis of the outside information, they generate impulse, and that impulse they generate electric impulse. Through the electric impulse, they send their information to the brain. Okay, and that is how all the coordination takes place in our body. Now there is another tissue you should know, that is neuroglial cells. Neuroglial cells are constitute of rest of the neural system. It constitutes 0.5% of the volume of our body's nervous system. We know that neuron is the unit of nervous system, right? We know that neuron is the unit of the nervous system, but 50% of the volume of our body's nervous system is made up of neuroglial cells. So what are these cells? These are special cells which are present. Suppose this is neurons. Alright, this is your neuron. And many neurons together. Okay, many neurons come together and they form a nervous tissue. Okay, and this nervous tissue is surrounded by a group of cells which looks like neuron. Okay, there are different types of cells. Neuroglial cells can be of different types. Astrocytes, okay, oligoneurocytes, all these are the cells. Oligoneurons, sorry. So these cells are present around the neurons, okay, just to support the neuron and just to protect the neuron from any kind of harmful injuries, okay, and so that it does not collapse, it supports, okay, like a ground substance, it supports the neuron from the surrounding. So but they don't do the function like how neuron do. What neuron can do, when neuron receives information from outside, it sends electric impulse through it and send to the next neuron and to the next neuron and send it to the brain. Okay, so that means it does the function of coordination. Whereas this neuroglial cells, these are neuroglial cells, they are for protection. They protect and support neurons. Alright, and they don't receive the information or transport the information. They don't do that. They don't receive or transport the information. Okay, so that's why their volume, their content is more. They support throughout the neuron. They are present. Alright. Now, due to stimulation means when we receive any information from the outside, okay, electric disturbance is generated, electric impulse is generated inside the neurons, and it travels inside the neuron and reaches to the nerve endings. So this is the front part of the neuron having dendrite, okay, these are dendrites, this is a cell body, an axon, and these are nerve endings. This is nerve endings. So this is how neuron is. Neuron cells. Okay. So when you receive, see, this neuron will be attached to our muscles, will be attached to our blood vessels, will be attached to our body tissue. Suppose this is our muscle cells. Okay. So neurons will be attached here, okay, to our muscles. So you have touched a hot utensil. So when your muscle cell receives this information, then this information passes to the neuron, because neuron is attached with the muscle. So whatever happens to the muscle, neuron will come to know. Okay? So neuron will receive this information and will generate electric impulse here. Will generate electric impulse. And it will reach to the nerve ending. Okay, this is nerve ending. And it will go to the, from here, it will go to the next neuron. Okay, here there may be another neuron. Sorry. Here is another neuron present here with dendrites. So it will send this information to the next neuron, then next neuron, and next neuron, and that is how it will reach to the brain. Okay. So when we receive stimulation from outside, this is stimulation, hot utensil, hot temperature is a stimulation received by the muscle of your hand or your leg or any part of your body, and that information goes to the neuron, and neuron will, since electrical disturbance, generation of electric impulse is called disturbance, electrical disturbance generated, okay, and it will travel to the neuron till the nerve ending, and it will pass to the adjacent neuron, the next neuron which is present, then from there the next neuron. So in that way the information will go to the brain, and the brain comes to know that okay, you are touching a hot pan, you should immediately remove your hand. So brain will again send the information to remove your hand. So it happens in a fraction of second, you know, in very small fraction of second it happens that we immediately remove our hand. Alright, so this is what was nervous tissue, and in detail about the muscle tissue also, which I have discussed. The function and the structure in detail we'll be learning in human physiology. What we have learned in this chapter is just the basic function and basic structure of the tissue. Okay, a very basic function and basic structure of the tissue we have learned, and it's a very small chapter where you need to. So what you can do is just tabulate all the tissue. tabulate, make a table for epithelial tissue, make a table for connective tissue, make a table for muscle tissue. For neuron, for nervous tissue, you don't need to make a table, okay? And if you wish, you can show me that table, alright? So if you send it in a group, then other students also, they can get inspired that, okay, I can also make this table in this way, and the learning will be better, okay? It will be easy to learn. Alright, so please do that. That is for, it will not be as an assignment, it is just a tips, okay? It is just a tips how to learn these tissues, their location, their structure and their function in a better way, in an easy way. Alright, so we come to the end of this chapter, and I'll be uploading the notes and the practice paper. So please do it and revise this chapter sincerely. Within one day you can complete the revision of this chapter, as it is a very small chapter. Okay, thank you and have a good day ahead.